Joining me now, former prosecutor David Bruno, defense attorney Rachel Kugel, and defense attorney and CNN legal analyst Danny Savalos. First, so I want to check in with Kirsten Foley. She's a news anchor at WATE, and she joins me now live from Knoxville, Tennessee. Kirsten, I am just astounded at the details behind this case. How bad was this breakup before this ultimate murder?
Well, I think, Ashley, our community was completely shocked, but people who knew the couple slowly began to trickle out some facts about this breakup happening just weeks before she was found dead. It was Emma's own family confirming to reporters that Riley just could not accept the breakup. Emma breaking up with him, trying to move on, and apparently Riley just could not. And as you said there in that introduction, posting on social media on November 9th saying, "I will do anything to have it all back."
What about this talk of suicide with his family or friends in the weeks prior to doing this? What do we know of his mental state?
Well, we learned a lot through the affidavit. I have a copy of it here. His own grandfather, who, according to the affidavit, is where Riley apparently got the gun. Stealing it from his grandfather is what we're being told by investigators, and again, detailed throughout these documents here. His grandfather told investigators that he was becoming increasingly concerned because he told investigators that his grandson was having suicidal thoughts.
And then those tweets, they didn't just come before the death, Kristen. They came after the death, too, like hours after the death.
Yeah, on the day that Emma was found, he began professing his love, putting up Bible verses and pictures, and then even the day of his arrest, some people calling it a long and lengthy tribute, even posting things talking about what he dreamed their future would be like, what their dog would be like if they had moved on together. But again, his Twitter account just filled with images. He even changed his description on social media, saying that basically he was living for Emma Walker now.
I want to read some of those tweets. We popped them up on the screen, but they really bear being read because I am guessing that they will be evidence in court as well. One of the tweets just hours after her death saying, "That's my beautiful Emma. Rest easy now, sweetheart." 1 Corinthians 13:8, be sure to remind God about our verse. I love you forever and always. And then within this, he had a photograph. And the photograph was of a page full of notes that he'd written on his phone. And if you actually read through those notes, there's some telling material in there as well. So let me do that if I can for a moment. One of the Twitter notes said, "There will never be a time where I stop thinking about you." And another tear said, "Rest easy now, beautiful. I'll be praying to you every night, waiting for a sign that you hear me. I love you, M. Never forget that." Danny Savalos, I want you to jump in here because you can read that two different ways. You can read that as though you are a very guilty young man. Or you can read that as you are a very troubled young man who thinks you're communicating with Emma in heaven, which could be insanity.
If you're his defense attorney, you're going to try and paint it that way. But it's going to show at least some knowledge that what he did was viewed by society as somehow morally culpable. And I'm certain that the prosecution can use that evidence that way. It's just an example of how certain evidence can be viewed by the defense or the prosecution in drastically different ways and used for each of their purposes.
So, Rachel, the one issue I had looking at the actual facts as laid out in the affidavit of how the shooting happened, he's alleged to have jumped over a 6-foot wall in the backyard and fired through the bedroom window to Emma as she was sleeping peacefully in her bed. Then jumping back over that wall, firing again. And the first thing that came to my mind was, what are the odds that you're going to make that kind of contact and that the contact you make is actually going to lead to a death? And that made me wonder if that's a part of the defense, meaning I never meant to.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a part of the defense. I think that there's no question that shooting into the house in that way raises some doubt about what his mental state was at the time and whether murder one is appropriate. What I thought was interesting, though, is that they're novelly sort of charging him with felony murder as well, with a child abuse element. And I'm wondering if that's not to sort of avoid that defense. In other words, to say, well, to go in there and shoot into the bedroom of a young girl may be child abuse. And if she died as a result, that may be felony murder.
Meaning you were behaving so recklessly no matter what you meant to do, that's child abuse, and that's an underlying felony for felony murder. We got you no matter what.
I thought it was interesting they charged him that way.
So the other question I had, David, is that the detectives after the killing of Emma got suspicious. about this young man, and they put him under surveillance. And as they were watching him, he was doing some unusual things. They say that it looked like he was preparing to destroy evidence, to get rid of the handgun. And when they hauled him in, just before they put up this lovely mugshot of him, they found him caught with a garbage bag full of items, including, wouldn't you know it, his grandfather's stolen pistol, the pistol they allege was used in this murder.
Yeah, sure. That's relevant to an individual count of tampering with evidence, which is he's been charged with, but it also goes to consciousness of guilt. And while we are talking about whether or not this may be a mental defense, that is probative and evidence of knowing that he did something wrong. And sure, it is absolutely legal to have him under surveillance if they have reason to believe. And it shows he knew what he did was wrong.
So, Kristen Farley, where is he right now as this all plays out and as obviously prosecutors are looking forward to a first-degree murder trial?
Right now, I do know that their next hearing is set to be the 30th, I believe, of this month. And again, you know, as you were saying, they're looking at tampering with evidence charges, reckless endangerment, and a lot of other charges because of that trash bag that they found. Again, the indictment just coming down officially this week, even though all of this happened back in November. But again, the indictment really painting a much clearer picture of maybe exactly what happened here.
It's just unbelievable. Thank you all for your input into this story. I've got some breaking news I want to